Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another, and I mean another, amazing episode of Musical People and Journeys. And tonight, it's another interview special, and tonight, it's even more special because we are talking to Trevor from the band Haunt, all the way from California. Hi, Trevor!
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, mate, our pleasure.
Thank
Thanks for joining us.
No doubt.
Now, you were just telling us off air that it's a heat wave. You're currently in California.
Yeah, 111 degrees here. I don't know what that would be in
Fahrenheit.
other world's standards, but basically it's an oven outside.
It's an oven. So,
and anybody from the UK would be probably the death rate in the UK would be like escalated like 40%. They say that people die, like especially the elderly, like if you don't have air conditioning, they die quicker during these times of year.
Oh,
it's a weird thing. It was on the news. It was on the news this morning because some places, like California, we have air conditioning. It gets hot. Like there's parts, Oregon, Washington, which is like the Pacific Northwest, where it's cooler because it's more northern. They don't have air conditioning standardly. So, like, they're really suffering, they're like...
So, Trevor, the first question has got to be, what is it like to be living in the heat and have a hot new album out there absolutely kicking?
Well, I do a lot of songwriting and I do a lot of recording of music and stuff, and I'm really excited about this record, Golden Arm, because I started working with a new mixing and mastering engineer named Darren Trenicost, and he's pretty brilliant. He works mainly on major label like pop records. He's not really super known in the heavy metal world at all, and I kind of wanted that because I didn't really want the typical over reverberated vocal. I wanted a real clean, crisp vocal, and he really provided a lot of new sounds for the new album, and it's been really awesome. The feedback from people, it's really transcending into some new areas that I've been trying to deliver in a long time. The rock world, especially, is like I've already been kind of embraced in the underground heavy metal scene quite well, especially here in America. And I've always kind of wanted a little bit, to get into the rock stuff a little bit more. I'm heavily influenced by rock music, so it was kind of nice to be able to finally kind of find a balance there for myself. So it's really cool to have Golden Arm out finally with the kind of fresh new production. So, I mean,
you say that, but looking at some of your history, you were very much into, what they call doom metal, and that sort of genre. So, here on MPJ, we stand for Musical People and Journeys, because we love a journey, we love a story. How did, how did it all begin for you then, as a musician? Were you influenced by your family growing up, or did you rebel and become a rock star? How did it all begin for you, Trevor?
So a lot of people know already, and maybe some people don't know, but my dad was the original bass player in Montrose and the Sammy Hagar band. So I've basically grown up around music my whole life. But it's weird with these old cats, like my dad and Sammy Hagar. They want us all to go play country music. So yes, I am the rebel. Because I'm like, there gets to a point where like, you guys need to be rich. You're not going to be rich doing this. They want you to, they want you to not make the same mistakes, right? And isn't that what parents kind of their thing is like, don't make the same mistakes we made. So, but I don't like country. I'm a California skateboarder, outside kind of dude. Like, I just was not. I'm like, I don't relate to that, you know. And so, in essence, I kind of, you know, started out more playing punk music, which my dad absolutely hated, but he also encouraged by buying me whatever records I wanted. I've been playing music a long time, but the journey didn't really begin for me until I started realizing that I should probably be the singer. I never started out as a singer. I always kind of was like a backup singer, you know, doing the backups, backing up whoever was there. And, but, you know, I got to a point where I had this vision and no singers were really there. Early 2000s were a weird place for somebody that wanted to play heavy metal. It was very saturated in indie rock, and certain things were really bolstered up. So finding musicians that wanted to do more of the old school thing, like myself at the time, I was having a problem. My first band as a lead singer, guitar player, Beastmaker, was actually signed by a British label, Rise Above Records, which is pretty well known throughout England and America. He has bands like Uncle Acid and Cathedral, Electric Wizard, Blood Ceremony. He's kind of curated this doom metal scene. And, you know, as far as I know, he really, like, when I think of, like, doom metal in England now, he's one of the first people I think about, because he's been doing it since, you know, he did it in the 90s into the 2000s.
How do you differentiate heavy metal to doom metal? What in your opinion? If some newbie was coming along and go, well, what's I'm Welsh, by the way, Trevor. What's doom metal, Trev?
Doom metal is more of like a slow version of heavy metal. It's much more. It's moodier, darker. Usually more like, my band was more based on like horror films of the 1960s and 70s, where like the creatures really moved slowly and had this like eerie, doomy vibe, right? Black Sabbath would be they're the godfathers of it. The song Black Sabbath, the tempo, they really set the stage of what doom metal would become, you know. So that's what doom metal is. If I had to pick the one song, Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath, that is the template of what every band has tried to
the fourth father of
capture.
Doom. The fourth father of Doom. So when you were obviously getting into your teens, etc. there as well, was that your first kind of call in then? Was that doom metal kind of scene? No.
Punk,
so what was your first pop music?
Punk
music.
Punk
so
rock.
Punk. So who was your standouts then? You know, who would you listen to?
A lot of the California stuff at the time. There's this famous club in Berkeley, California, called 924 Gilman, and a lot of people that would certain bands that would be associated with that venue would be a band like Rancid, Operation Ivy, Green Day. They kind of all got their start there. And it just so happened, you know, it's an all ages kind of DIY nonprofit venue. It's very cheap. So as a kid, I kind of went there a lot in my teenage years because I couldn't get into the 21 and over clubs to see the heavy metal bands or any of that stuff that I was into. And also, you know, I wasn't really into mainstream stuff as much by that point in time. I really kind of connected more to the stuff of the street, the more gritty, attitude-driven music, even though Rancid became a obviously huge name, and so did Green Day. But that's because the music was so great, and it came from a place that was really, I would say, very pure. It wasn't tarnished by wanting to be famous or anything at those times. It was more. It was a really good community, and it kind of blossomed through California. I can name a dozen places, which I won't because it'll take too much time, but kind of copied that aesthetic and created a scene which made me want to start a band. My first band was called Scattered Fall, and we played like a variation of like old school punk, and then more of what would become, you know, kind of a Gilman Berkeley sound, I guess, more hardcore was kind of thing. Bands like AFI, they're early AFI, not the mainstream AFI most people know now, but the early variation of the band, which isn't even the AFI that you see today. They had different members back then, other than the drummer and the singer. Those bands really influenced me because they were a little bit more technical, it was a little bit more polished as well. And that just kind of led to me. I always liked metal, but Metallica and Megadeth were really putting out some really rotten records. I mean, I just didn't like, they weren't even metal anymore. You know what I mean? Like, metal kind of took this, like, the bands that we were looking up to that played heavy metal were no longer playing heavy metal, which was a weird thing. And I remember when Load came out, I'm not kidding you, I was like, they cut their hair, they look like fucking just like a different band. And as soon as I pressed play, I turned it off.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, and then the biggest downfall for me was Danzig. After album 4, I was just depressed because he was one of my favorite artists I ever heard. You know, I got several Danzig tattoos on me. Love Danzig. And even so, like, it really was weird. So I just kind of stuck with like Misfits at that time. And all the guys in my band really loved the Misfits. So punk rock was really the first calling in music that I had. But eventually I wanted to get more technical. Guitar solos weren't really a thing. Technical arrangement wasn't a thing. Technical playing wasn't a thing. It was like, you know, you had to be good, but you didn't have to be great. And I didn't really like that. That started to irritate me because I felt like I wanted to be so much more as a guitar player. Because at that time, I wasn't a singer. I just sang the backups. Like, what do you want me to do here? Okay, cool. You know, that.
At what point then did you switch from becoming that backing singer to that lead man singer? Was that when you then switched from punk? Or?
Yeah, so that would have been, my band Beastmaker was really the first, and there was about 4 or 5 different versions of Beastmaker before I really found the calling, and that's when Rise Above Records in England signed us. It took a long time. I also had some really tragic things happen in my life. I'm an only child. I had 3 cousins that they're only children as well, and we all kind of connected musically because the family really revolves around music. Everybody's a musician in my family in their own sense. And I grew up playing with these guys, and they just one by one they started dying, all from tragic accidents.
Oh, what?
And
that's awful.
So I kind of had this like weird, from like 23 to about 29, I was like not in a good place. I was really into alcohol. I was working. I was fine. I was totally a functioning alcoholic at that time. I really, my motivation in music was it was all over the place. And my drummer that's in my band now, Haunt, we've been playing together for like 20 years. And he saw all this. It was very hard to get me into it because I just had a lot of trauma.
What were you doing as a day job then at the time then? So you say you were a functional...
I was a hairstylist.
A hairstylist, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fair play. So you're a hairstylist, and you were obviously, you know, through various different stuff, becoming a functioning alcoholic, which is kind of an interesting take on that as well. But were you, and you were still playing in a band at the time, or?
I played in several, maybe 10, maybe 20 different bands. You couldn't really keep me in a band very long. It wasn't because I was showing up and stumbling drunk and falling over on the floor. It was generally because the overall creative side of it, whatever the main guy was doing, eventually became old to me. Or if people wanted me in their band and I wasn't really into it, but I'd go for a little bit just to get out of the house and just to play, It was just not.
Do you think music caused the alcoholism, or was it the events
No.
outside of music? And so then, was music part of you coming out of that? Was that did it lead you from the dark to the light? If you see what I mean.
I actually haven't had a drink in 13 years.
That's amazing. Well done.
So it was one of those things where my uncle called me, my dad's brother, and he has always had like these cover bands in town, and he used to do really well at PAX places and stuff, top 40 stuff, and they needed a player, and he knew I was really down. He knew we're very close. He knew that inside I was suffering because I had the loss in my life was so tremendous. It was hard for me to play because it just reminded me
absolutely
of my childhood stuff. And I just was having a hard time coming to terms with the things that happened and just dealing with it. He was like, hey, we need a bassist, come play. I went and played a couple gigs. I hadn't played on stage at that point in like a year. I hadn't performed. And I got up there and I was like, man, I really, really miss this. Like, I don't really love being a hairstylist. It was a job, easy. You're on your own. You set your own hours. You're your own boss, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Perfect for a musician, realistically. And one day I just woke up and was like, I'm going to die. Like, if I continue on, I've never been into drugs besides weed. I don't like drugs. So luckily that never became a thing. I never had any interest in that. It was more about drowning everything out than numbing the pain. I just wanted to like the alcohol escape. You just into oblivion. I needed to be able to wake up the next day and go to work without having to drink. You know what I mean? So, like drug addicts, you're a junkie. You have to wake up. It's the first thing you do. I didn't want like that. I just couldn't foresee. But the alcohol will kill you. It's what ultimately killed my cousins because they were in vehicle accidents. So I just realized, I was like, man, I'm here. They're not. They're probably looking down and going, like, you're alive. You're talented.
Dude, come on.
Like,
remember us with music and stuff as well. And do you think their deaths have then have inspired you to write music? Have you actually written music about them or stuff?
They inspired Haunt. 100%. Haunt. The name Haunt actually. Yeah. It's because of them. They haunt what happened haunts me. It's not a like to be spooky like a band like Ghost or anything like that.
No.
I wanted a really literal term that really connected to
they're with you.
My emotions. Yes, like they're not. It's the tragedy that haunts me. It's not. It's their deaths that haunt me. It's not them.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's not, and I've learned to turn it into a more positive. Like I tell my fans all the time, like. My music to me is therapy. I don't look at albums like I'm making a creative thing. I'm like, I need this to get through my life.
So when you then got back on that stage, you said, right, this is. I'm going to get back into music and I'm going to, do that sort of stuff. How did you then go down? You obviously decided you were going to go into rock music and do what you love, I presume. But why? Yeah. Why then? Was it then doom metal that you
yes.
So why that genre? Is it because that's the best way to express how you were feeling, or?
So at the time, roughly around like 2003-ish. Because it took me a while. I joined a couple bands that were failures. I still hadn't kind of grasped the idea of being a singer.
Yeah.
It took me a minute. I always sang, so I knew I could do it. But it was like playing guitar and singing at the same time is a lot more complicated than most people really think, especially if you don't do it a lot. And then to do a technical music of heavy metal, a little bit harder. So doom metal was a great introduction to me because the guitar playing wasn't as hard.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I could do this. Right. Like I could do this. And the bands that were coming out at the time that I was really finding fascinating, there was a band from Texas called The Sword. and they had put out a really great record, their debut album, Age is a Winner, fantastic. And then there's a band from San Francisco that was coming out called Orchid, and they really had this Black Sabbath thing going on. But I was always very influenced by British heavy metal in general at an early age. And there's this band called Witchfinder General, and I was like, okay, cool, I really love this style. But then there's a band from California, Southern California, called Saint Vitus, and they're like a Black Sabbath doom type band that was around in the early 80s that were on the same label as Black Flag, which literally makes no sense because SST Records was a punk rock label, but here out of nowhere there's this heavy metal band, right? And they do bell bottoms, long hair, they're grungy, they're playing like, you know, a style that's basically dead to the world. That had a lot of allure to me. And then to find a band like Pentagram from the East Coast, I was like, I really like this. I think I could do something like this. That was the influence and inspiration to that. And it led me to Lee Dorian of Rise Above Records, and that's why I'm here today. If it wasn't for him and Scott Carlson from Los Angeles, who works with Lee for Rise Above, I don't think I would have ever been found, because I don't have, even though my dad was famous, he's not Sammy Hagar. You know, I didn't have doors just opening up for me to do what I wanted, so nor the money.
How did that record deal come about then? Were you spotted by somebody, or I mean, because how does a British record label find you then? So how did that process work?
So I have a friend, I got a buddy, Tony Trujillo. He lives here locally in town, and I met him through a mutual friend, you know, so many years ago now, but he was very into old horror films or old horror anything. And he saw what I was doing, and like listening to what I was doing was like, dude, I fucking love this, man. I put out this demo called You Must Sin, and I found this, like, I had this French poster of a Vincent Price movie called Dr. Phibes, and we graphically, the graphic design, cut it all out. We put the logo Beastmaker and just covered it in blood dripping. And it has this like really cool, like, I mean, at the time, this would have been graphic design in the 60s of Vincent Price's face. It's like yellow. And then we put You Must Sin under it, and it just like, it was gold. When I saw it, I was like, I kind of designed it roughly, and then this graphic studio called Bronca Studio in Barcelona took it and made it look more professional and made it look old and made it have a really great look. And the music being all lo-fi, done in a home studio, it struck a chord. I mean, I put it on Bandcamp, and it started getting a lot of traction there. And literally 1 week later, I got a message from Scott Carlson. He said, hey, your friend Tony sent me a link to your music saying I'd really love it because it's like inspired by 60s horror films. I listened to your music and I love it, and I want you to get signed to Rise Above Records. Lee Dorian is my best friend. I'm going to tell him to sign you. He needs to sign your band. Lee hit me up a week later and wanted to use the album as a 7-inch. I think he was looking for a band. He did a couple 7-inches at the time. And I think he was looking for some bands that were going to be a band that would sell some records and maybe have some traction in the music world. I think Beastmaker did that. Our 7-inch sold out like almost overnight, and he contacted me a few days later and was like, I need to give you guys a full album deal, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm going to give you guys an advance to get you over to Europe. I'm curating the Roadburn Festival in Tilburg, and we have a big emptied out cathedral there where I'm going to curate all the bands, and I want Beastmaker to be one of the bands on that. I have another band on my label, Blood Ceremony, coming over for a tour. It's not going to pay you guys much, so I'm going to give you this money so it could cover the cost of that.
Wow.
So we were like, our first tour was actually in the UK. We started in England. We played like 10 shows. So we hadn't even played outside of Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco area before. We hadn't even traveled to a different state in the United States. And we were already over in Europe. Most of the stuff we did was very Europe-based at the time.
And do you think that was a very successful period for you then? Was it a major? Did it change you? It's like getting that record deal. Did it change you? Do you feel that did that put you personally and your band on the map? And
100%. I don't live in a place that's cool. I don't live in a hipster town where like being in a band is cool. I tell people I'm in a band here. They go, "Well, what is your day job?"
Yeah.
You know, they don't look at musicians as anybody that has any sort of clout or anything whatsoever. You know, the purpose is just like you play shows locally. I mean, this city I live in is doomed for local bands. It's very hard to get out. So I felt very lucky. It ended up being a little bit hard, the deal in the end. I don't really love how it all ended, sadly, but that's how things go sometimes. You really see the difference between somebody from England and then somebody from California. We are very different. California is very fast paced. We like to just do things as we just do them. Like to live very freely and very just like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. That's how we live. In England, I mean, don't take this, or the UK, I mean, don't take this in a negative way, because obviously it makes the British people how they are and have made
Go on, spit it out. Tell us. Go on. How do you describe it?
A little bit tight, very apologetic.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you literally you walk by somewhere and barely graze them. They turn around and apologize. We're here, you just walk on by, right? It's like, oh my God, sorry, man, sorry, mate. Sorry. You know, you're just like, holy shit. You're
all the time.
Lord.
There's some very rude people out there. So listen, Trish, come on. You've always moaned that I always leave you to last, but we're not going to do that tonight. Let's crack on. You must have some questions here, Trish, for the wonderful Trevor.
Okay. What do you hope people take away from your music?
Well, you know, in this world, we're only given so much time here. And as you know, as I told you with the tragedies of my cousins, that time could be short-lived. And I always just wanted to, you know, hopefully just like inspire people to grab a guitar, or those people that don't have the musical ability but love the music, to have something to connect to, especially with the message I bring in my music with Haunt, which is, like I said, is the therapy for me. And I talk about life topics more than I talk about stories. I like to really tackle reality and not fiction. And I just hope that in the end, I've helped people get through hard times and give them some inspiration to just, you know, live to be able to get through their day. You know, like there's people that tell me like, man, this song got me through some really hard times a lot. I mean, I wrote this song called Light the Beacon, and I'm going to use this as an example because I wrote Light the Beacon of Remembrance is the main hook of it. And it's on my album Mind Freeze. I've had several people just in the last couple years cry in my arms over the song because they had experienced tragedy, especially during the COVID stuff. You know, people lost people. It was a very hard time for the world. And to have somebody like me sitting there and really telling my tale of tragedy, how I embrace it and how I've taken some of the darkest possible things that could happen to you and turn it into something beautiful and artistic. That's why I do what I do. And that's what I hope to take away and give to everybody in the end.
Well, you have to say, Trish, that's the best answer I think you might have ever had to that question.
Yeah, it
Crack
is.
on. Next one.
It is. What's the best advice that you've ever been given as a musician?
So my dad, and this is heavy, so prepare yourself.
Oh,
So
we love heavy.
when my cousin Michael died, I was 19. He taught me how to play guitar. He was kind of he was like the main guy in my life. Like he was like I had two other cousins that I played music with, but they were on my dad's side. My cousin Mike was on my mom's side. And for some reason, that side of the family, we did a lot more stuff together on a regular occasion, probably because we were closer in proximity. So I spent a lot of time with him. He taught me guitar. He actually showed me heavy metal. He got me into Iron Maiden. He got me into Judas Priest. He got me into all these bands. When I was 6, I was like the only 6-year-old in elementary school.
Start them young, I say. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like they were like listening to New Kids on the Block and shit, and I'm like skateboarding, listening to punk and heavy metal. I was like a weird kid. I was not like your average one, but anyway, so my dad, I was having a hard time because my mom's side's Catholic, and you don't just do a funeral. They do all this. I'm not very religious, so I don't really know why they do this, but there's a couple services involved. The first one, it just really messed me up. I just couldn't handle it. And I had to actually call my dad. I said, Dad, because my parents are divorced. I said, I need you to be here. I can't. I'm a pallbearer in his funeral. I have to carry his casket to the ground.
Sure.
And my dad, and at that time I was in my punk rock era, and I was in a band. I was playing. I was really like focused at that time. My band was doing really good. We were playing all over the place. My singer at the time, people loved him. He was a very good looking guy. He's very artistic, very cool. And I was driving, and he was driving me home. And I just had gone through the most horrible experience, besides probably losing your parents at a young age, that somebody could really go through. And we were talking about music, and he told me, he's like, son, he said, you must always play from the heart. And honestly, the tragedies made me who I am. It gave me something to say. Before, I didn't really have anything to say. Maybe that's why I wasn't the frontman. But those words will stick with me forever. He did say that, and then there was another thing he said later that's not as dark. This is my dad being my dad. He's like, you didn't sweat, you didn't play.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that I always gravitate to.
Amazing.
I'll hand back to you, Nigel, because I'm just enjoying listening.
So you say then, obviously, Haunt is a different genre. You say that's going to be modelled on British rock. So Judas Priest, who have a new album coming out in the next couple of months, so we're looking forward to that. And so who for you then was your, if you could have gone back to the halcyon days of the past, which band would you had one choice to go and see? Who would be that band?
I'm gonna get shamed and then also praised with this answer. Def Leppard.
Oh, well,
I saw them the other week.
I mean, I loved them. I absolutely, I adore their first records. Yeah. I really love their early sound, and I also don't mind their Mutt Lange, very pop oriented stuff as well. I don't really like what they're doing now, sadly, but that tends to happen to some bands that have been around a long time. They kind of lose that magic. They dealt with death. They dealt with tragedy, and but what they brought in that first initial stage of their career, I really love their message. I love their lyrics because they didn't really have to be like evil. No, they didn't really have to be anything attached to heavy metal. They were the people's
They were the personification of heavy glam rock, weren't they? Do you know what I mean? In that Halcyon days, I saw them a few years ago, and they were terrific. And the energy, one thing about why I think these bands are so long lived is the energy that they give. I mean, I watched Iron Maiden a couple of years ago, and I don't particularly like the direction Iron Maiden have gone. I think it's bit too dirgy for me. But
I agree.
But there's no denying that when at 61 years old or whatever he was, and the band in their late 60s, the energy that they're still giving, the fitness and the energy that they give on the stage and the performances are amazing. So
they're an inspiration.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I've seen them quite a few times, and I will say I love that they respect themselves as well. Now, they maybe in their younger years they drank heavily, but now as older men, they're fit, they take care of themselves because they know that they need to go, their purpose is to go out there and give people what they want. And in order to really do that, you can't be an out of shape old alcoholic rock star.
Hey, we watched the film where we were laughing our heads off because we watched the film based on Motley Crue and The Dirt, and how they got away with that was amazing. And now when you talk to bands, that culture of sex, drugs, and rock and roll isn't there. It's all about but it's all about the music. It's all about the art, and the family and family to support you through that process is absolutely essential. In this kind
those days are gone.
Yeah, totally.
That vibe. It's weird because we're kind of seeing an 80s resurgence right now in heavy metal pretty heavily, and I always try to tell like bands that are like coming up, we're part of this genre called new wave of traditional heavy metal.
Yes.
And it's really up and coming right now. And I'm lucky enough to be one of the first 10 bands or so to really get some traction within that genre. There's obviously people that were there before, and I give them all the credit. I just don't have time to go through it all. But these younger bands, they're coming in and they're wanting to be trashy. They want to do this. They want to do that. And I'm watching them and I'm like, guys, my dad was that. They were part of that generation. And they will tell you now, all those old guys, like the ones that actually made it and actually kept going and had longevity, they all had to like kind of quit that stuff pretty early on in their careers. Like it was more like, you're sober all day until after the gig, and then maybe you could have a beer or two. You couldn't get sloppy, fucked up, and be what Motley Crue was. And there's bands that really, I say this because I speak the truth and only the truth. I'm watching a lot of the younger bands are doing a lot of cocaine and doing heavy drinking, and I'm just like, I'm sitting over here sober. Maybe having a joint. When I perform, I actually don't smoke weed. I'm 100% sober on stage. I couldn't do that at 42 years old. There's no way.
No, we watched the Fontaines DC play in down local in a big concert, and like they were whacked out of their heads, and they were awful. In my opinion, they were awful. And I love my rock, and yet the band that came after them went, oh my god, they were amazing, and they were quite. I was like, what? And then Fontaines have gone and won different awards, etc. And I'm going like, well, based on that live performance, I'm not interested in at all. So anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the album and where you've got to now in your journey. So part of the traditional new wave heavy metal. How would you describe the album Golden Arm? How would you describe it?
I would say there's from just all the things that the musicians in my life that I've taken inspiration from, Ozzy, guitar players like George Lynch, Randy Rhoads, Jakey Lee, bass players like, my dad, obviously, the number one bass player ever, my hero in this life.
Absolutely.
And then, like I said, like the bands like Def Leppard, Thin Lizzy, more the emotional bands. So, I feel like my music is more of like an emotionally charged, like kind of heavy metal that doesn't really, there's also a lot of Southern California punk music still in my music.
Yes.
Because you can't really remove your past. It's always kind of there. There's always a splinter of your past somewhere. And I wouldn't be honest without that. And the opening song, Hit and Run, I would almost put it, I could go play with several of the Southern California big bands of the 90s and early 2000s, bands like Pennywise, AFI, Strung Out. Like, I could go play a show with them playing that song. But then I have songs like Fight the Good Fight that are like definitely more Dawkins, Jake E. Lee style guitar with like some Ozzy influence on the vocals. And I've had people tell me like I kind of sound like a mixture of Ozzy and Bruce Dickinson in a weird way. I'm like, I'll take that because I like both of those guys. But I always kind of thought of myself as more like I'm an Ozzy meets early Joe Elliott meets Phil Lynott kind of guy. That's how I kind of would describe the album.
Let me tell you now, right, from a neutral perspective, all right, okay, that you have no resemblance to Ozzy Osbourne whatsoever, and I'll tell you for why. Because I absolutely love your voice and I love your playing, and I think Ozzy. I love Ozzy's playing, but I'm not a fan of Ozzy. I'm a fan of yours. Your album is very interesting because when you first hear it, you go, "Oh, it's a bit generic. It's okay," but it's a grow up. I was listening onto YouTube today, and I much preferred, bizarrely, from listening onto headphones on Amazon Music. It was different. Because sometimes music is, you've got to be in the right frame of mind, the right time and place. And I thought, right, I better listen to Haunt again, just to remind myself, did I enjoy the album? And I did. And I went, oh my God, listening on YouTube, bizarrely, with my headphones on at work, was a different experience. And I'm not just saying it just because I'm interviewing you now. I actually enjoyed it a lot more, bizarrely. And maybe I was in a different place, but or maybe it was the visuals, because some of your videos are fantastic. There's no two ways about that. So it's really, really, really quite cool. And I would definitely put you towards that more like Def Leppard kind of vibe, and you've got a lovely clean vibe and a lovely vocals. And I think that it's really kind of interesting. So okay, so you were coming up to the end. So a couple of questions I would like to ask you now is, in your opinion, other than yourselves, who, if you had to go and see somebody today, up and coming band, who would? Is there anybody on your radar that you've got? Oh wow, they're exciting.
Yeah. So strangely, I've been like producing, engineering, and like helping with songwriting with this younger band from Los Angeles called Saber, Saber. And I drummed on their first couple of releases. I was their drummer, and I just got done recording their newest record. And I think they're going to be really a force to be reckoned with. They're young and they got a lot of what it takes. And then they have me, who's like 42. I've been touring and playing music and failing for years. So, most of the people that end up, having some success have a lot of failures on their plate.
Oh, huge!
Unless they were really, really lucky. So I'm teaching them along the way. I'm kind of their mentor in that light, and they would say the same. So they're a band I really find to be on the rise if they can get through. They got a lot of work to do. But as far as a band that is currently on a trajectory of big things, and they've been around for a while, and they kind of spearheaded the new wave of traditional heavy metal movement, is a band from Sweden called Enforcer.
Yeah,
Yeah, read their album.
Yeah. So they have their new record, Nostalgia, is quite fantastic. I really love his voice. He's an amazing singer. Part of me wishes I was their lead guitar player, but hopefully he doesn't see that and feel like that fucking asshole.
Can I just stop you there? Is there not an instrument you can't play or do in a band? Because I knew you. So now you can do drums, bass guitar, lead guitar, vocals.
Yeah.
Triangle.
I
Tambourine.
record too. I do. I'm a Renaissance
You're
man.
amazing. What a talented dude. So this...
I'm sober. What do you think I do on the weekend?
Yeah.
Everybody's out socializing. I'm sitting here with a fucking drum set learning how to play.
So
you know what I mean?
Talk about drums. You did mention. I mean, it'd be reminiscent to go, or it wouldn't be very fair of us to talk about your band, because you mentioned a drummer who's been with you for 20 years, and what's his name?
Andy Soldati.
Andy Soldati. So how did so he's been with you playing through bands for the last 20 years. So he's stuck with you, and is it more collaborative with him? Do you have a collaborative relationship with?
No. No.
No.
He kind of understands that I need to be left alone.
Okay.
Because my music is maybe a little bit too personal, but we on the end spectrum, because he just lets me play on the record because it's just easier those ways. He played on some of my albums, but not anything with Haunt. He comes in when I'm writing, and I'm kind of like, did I do the right thing? Collaborative. So he hears the afterthought.
He sanity checks
and helps me refine. Like, oh, you should have played that drum beat different. You got to go back. That kind of collaboration, yes. But as far as in a room jamming, I haven't done that with anybody in years. And I can. I have a slew of side projects like I could talk about. But those kind of projects, there's too many hands in the cookie jar. And when you're trying to get a message across, especially the type of message I have for Haunt, you would have to have gone through some terrible things to be able to be in the room with me.
So who's the band members? Let's reel them off.
I have Andy Soldati on drums, Sammy Harmon on bass and backup vocals, and Andy Lee on guitar and vocals. We're a 2-guitar band. We both do lead guitar. So we just say guitar. So
did this band evolve from something, or did you just put an ad out and recruit them? Or obviously Andy, you obviously knew, but...
So this is Haunt 3.0 right now. Okay. So I've had some revisions. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I think I finally found people that kind of understand my creative process. People want to be involved, and that gets really complicated with me. Like I said, because, I'm working on this daily. I treat it as like, this is what I do. So, for instance, I'm writing a song. I'm likely to finish it that day. Like, you have to come over. I'm not going to call you and be like, hey, guys, I want to work on this song right now. Can you please come here so I have a beat? It's like, nah, I'm going to get behind the drum set, lay the beat down, play the fucking guitar, sing all of it, and get it done. So it's been a strange journey in that light. My previous band, Beastmaker, it was kind of the same, but we still jammed a lot. We would just get together and mess around. Like, I don't do that anymore. Those days are gone. So I had to kind of like find musicians that were okay with my process, but also bring to the live show. I've had a hell of a hard time. I love the guys I have right now, and I treat them with a lot of respect, and I always give, I just got done doing another record, strangely, as this one is just coming out, but that's just the process these days, because it takes a long time to go from point A to point B,
absolutely.
And I just like being ahead. I like being ahead. I had the bass player play on it. I said, hey, you want to play on it? And Andy Lee, my guitar player, my live guitar player, he has some solos in Golden Arm. He doesn't play all the guitar parts, but he has some great solos in there. I'll have him.
Yeah, they're
I'll call him up and I'll be like, hey, I think you should come play this solo, because I also want him to be able to show off his talent to people. And it's not in that area. That's a different creative side.
So
the structure of the music, of the melody part where I'm singing, and the parts, the lyrics and all that, I need to be alone to really harness that energy.
So a question I always ask people: lyrics or music first?
I actually write the guitar riffs first. Everything is built around a guitar riff.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't write the lyrics until I have the music, because the riff and the beat are going to definitely dictate a lot. I feel like that speaks to me, and that's what triggers that pen to go down on that piece of paper.
Fascinating. So, are you doing a tour? Are you going on tour with this album?
Yeah, so we just got done doing a tour with a really great British band from the new wave of British heavy metal genre and era called Satan. They're a great band. They're one of the best British bands of all time, in my opinion, and love them. And then up and coming, another California band we really connect with called Night Demon. We just did a full U.S. tour, 30 some odd shows with those guys. And then we're about to go back out on the road here in a month. August 22nd, we hit the road with another California band that's really great called Hellfire. We've done a lot of shows and tours with them. They're really good buddies. We're going out and doing like a pretty good sizable run across the United States. Come March, I've already been booked. There's festivals already booked in Europe. I'm going to be all over Europe. Not certain of the UK, but that's what I got on the plate right now.
I mean, it's the home of British record. I mean, you've got to come. You've got to come, hopefully. Hopefully, we'd love to see it.
If you think that I don't want to, you're mistaken. I mean, how do I get there? Because it's been a lot of years. I haven't been since 2020. My booking agent in Europe, I'm no longer working with them. I had a friend's band. They wanted to do a tour with us. They put together the European tour. So it's kind of up to them to where they want to go. I'm hoping me going back over there, and people seeing Haunt again is going to get me a new agent over there that actually, I'm very easy. I don't want to be there. I don't need to play all the festivals. It's like, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I don't need to be there all the time. I only realistically, one tour in Europe a year is enough.
Oh gosh,
for me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I'm not trying to I don't know how it's so complicated. I know there's been a lot of things going on. There's a war. There's just been a lot of bad. There's not been a lot of good, and hopefully, when people see we're over there and we're in good spirits, I'm not asking a lot. I just want the opportunity to play. I'm hoping that, and the festival promoters are stoked to have us. They, because they can't afford to fly Haunt in,
Absolutely.
So to get us at what they pay the metal bands in Europe they're ecstatic to have it. So it's like, I really hope it reopens that door, because I was doing that before the pandemic. Things were good.
Yeah. So, final question, which I ask all my bands because I love this question. I don't know if you saw Steel Panthers on America's Got Talent or American Idol. America's Got Talent, isn't it? They were on there as well.
I don't know, because I don't
so those
watch
Steel
that,
Panthers
but I love it. But I am familiar with Steel Panthers.
So Steel Panther, big massive power metal band, went on America's Got Talent, rocked it. Fair play to them. If you had the opportunity, would you go on America's Got Talent? Will you go on a talent show on national TV to demonstrate your?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
bring it on.
I would give it a shot. I mean, I might not be as versatile. Definitely not a jazz guy. Definitely
No, you just got to play your metal. You just got to play your music.
If I was just to go do my thing, if I was to show people what I'm doing, absolutely. What do I got to lose? They don't love me. Some people might. You're not gonna. There's one thing I've learned in this life, in my 42 years of being here. You can't win them all.
No, absolutely.
You can't.
No.
So you go out there, and like my dad said, you play with your heart. People are gonna feel that.
Yeah.
They can sense phony bullshit, and some people like that. But when you play very emotionally charged and you play hard, people take away from that because they feel that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Well, listen, we lost Trish. I think she
it seems we did.
We didn't, but hey, the cool dudes were still here. The cool rock chick left, and she's probably lost internet connection. Trevor, it has been an absolute joy and a blast. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good luck with the album. Do let us when Saber release their album, let us know, and we'll whack it onto our review because we do about 16 albums a month.
Oh wow!
That one. So do let us know when they release their album, and we'd love to review it.
Please do.
But
and let me put one more thing in there. Follow me on my social media.
Absolutely.
Instagram, Haunt the Nation. Facebook, Haunt the Nation. TikTok, Haunt the Nation. I'm on there. I have fan clubs on there that are groups that we have real only musical chats. I mean, there's no political nonsense. People post all kinds of stuff. I interact with it personally. Also, there's a new thing in the music world, Bandcamp, that's direct to me. You can support me directly there, hauntthenation.bandcamp.com. Also, we have a thing called Patreon, which is a really great way for me to connect with people, and it also supports what I do. Patreon.com/HauntTheNation. You can find all kinds of stuff there. I'm there. I'm really personable with all things that I do. I oversee it. I respond. So if you check out my music and you like it, please reach out. Even if this is, heard you on Musical People and the Journeys and want to say loved your stuff. Just that, and I could, even if it's short, just a thank you, I will respond.
Absolutely, and obviously you can share this across your social media and vice versa. And please, everybody, if you like it, if you love what you've seen today, please hit that like and hit that subscribe button for us. We would love you forever, and we can bring more bands to you. Trevor, it has been an absolute joy. Thank you very much for sharing, your life journey so far, and we look forward to seeing your next album when you come out, and maybe another interview. And hopefully we might get to see you in the UK. Trish, normally if she's interviewed you, you'll probably end up with a tattoo on her somewhere, because she seems to. I'm saying to her, God, you're getting a tattoo for every person you interview. And she goes, yes. I'm like, God, I got to stop. There's going to be nothing left of her. So,
it's a sickness,
fantastic,
man. I mean, look at me. I'm covered. I got quite a few. So I know the journey there. Well, I appreciate you, Nigel. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah.
And great chatting with you, man.
You too.
Cheers.
Take care. Keep on rocking. Bye for now.
Thank you.